And welcome back to the Boomin Buckeyes Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Croy, here with Jake Hurricane. How you doing?
How you doing, Cody?
Doing well.
Another beautiful day down here in Florida. It's getting hot, like 95 degrees. Humidity's crazy down here. I'm ready to come back to Ohio.
You don't hear that very often.
Not often.
I envy you. I do quite a bit of vacationing in Florida, and I love it. But got a lot to get into today. We got to talk about some guys that we think will really change this season. Some guys that need to change this season as we approach 2026. Obviously, the schedule is very difficult. The roster had a lot of turnover. Guys like Caleb Downs, Caden McDonald, Sonny Styles. That was another name that we unfortunately lost. So just looking at the roster, what we've seen out of spring, what are some guys, or at least give me your first guy on your list that you think has to change the season and will change the season?
Really looking at Peyton Pierce. He's one of these younger Buckeyes I'm extremely high on. I just like the way he plays football. He's like an old school, Ohio State linebacker, and he has like that modern day athleticism, physical, downhill, high motor type of guy. And I think he's really ready, to possibly step up into that new role as like the anchor and leader of this defense. Last year he had already had 43 tackles without being the main guy. So now with a bigger role, I feel like this is a year where he can become a real problem in the middle for that defense.
Yeah, Peyton Pierce, we saw him quite a bit throughout the playoff run, throughout the regular season, a guy that he rotated in a few times, but definitely is going to have a bigger role this year. Like you said, has that old style linebacker, that physical. I believe he's a Texas boy, so I think that will pay dividends for Ohio State. We like our guys from Texas, so just having him and his physicality, that's going to be a really big deal. For me, my first guy, a guy that I've been high on since we recruited him, it's Riley Pettijohn out of Florida, a guy that um, he's been hurt throughout all of spring camp, but he played a little bit last year. His athleticism, a guy that hits really hard, really physical linebacker, um, great at getting to the ball, a guy that I think will play a huge role in Ohio State's defense this year. And I'm really excited to see how James Laurinaitis develops him as we just put two linebackers into the NFL.
Yeah, and I'm extremely high myself on Riley Pettijohn. Moves in space extremely well, and he can impact the game on multiple phases. So I'm with you 100%, Cody. I think Riley's going to be one hell of a player for us.
Number two, your second guy that needs to break out for Ohio State this season.
I might surprise a few people with this one, but I'm going to go with Legend Bay.
Hey,
Um, I think a lot. I mean, we're hearing those ramblings, but
a ton of buzz,
ton of buzz about him. Jeremiah Smith had high praise. The upside is unreal. I mean, this kid is Olympic level fast. I think he had 4,000 rushing yards in high school, 3,500 passing yards. This is a guy. I mean, you can stick him anywhere on the field. I mean, we can use him as a nice little scat back option. You could put him in the slot, direct snap. I mean, I think this guy, as long as he can put on a little, which I heard he is gaining a little bit of weight, he needs to get healthy. But I do believe, if the health checks out, this is a guy you're going to see have a huge, part in this offense.
Legend Bay, the true freshman, a guy that has also been hurt, did not participate in the spring game. But as we've heard from Coach Day, he's drawn comparisons to Xavier Johnson. Um, who else did he draw comparisons to? There were some really big names.
I heard the Xavier Johnson one, and I know I've heard other comparisons. For some reason, none of them are coming to mind besides the Xavier Johnson one. So I'm on it with you.
But that Xavier Johnson role, that's really interesting that Coach Day named him in particular. Obviously, a guy that he was kind of a Swiss Army knife. So, and as we've heard out of Bay, he can play multiple positions. He can play running back, a little bit of receiver. I'm excited to see how he can fit in this offense in year one. If you're already drawing comparisons to some pretty impressive players, it's not far-fetched to say that he will have a role, and really excited to see what he can do. Has to stay healthy. he's been practicing with the running backs, but can play all over the field.
And I did remember one of the other comparisons is Curtis Samuel.
Yes,
That's a big one. Yeah, a lot
Curtis
of
Samuel. Yes,
Curtis Samuel was another big one, which I great days with Curtis Samuel gave us one of the greatest moments in modern day Ohio State history with that overtime touchdown to beat that team up north. So that speed, man, that's what Legend's going to bring to the table, and I'm very excited to see what this kid's going to do at Ohio State.
absolutely. My number two, he had an extended role in his true freshman season, and that's Nate Roberts, tight end. A guy that he could take the lead spot with Jelani Thurman transferring, with Max Clare heading to the NFL draft. Obviously, the Buckeyes, they added Mason Williams out of Ohio and Hunter Welsing, but Nate Roberts, he's a guy that played the fullback role last year, and he also played some tight end, went out for a few passes. But if he is in that lead role at tight end, I'm excited to see how he fits into Brian Day's system with new offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. He's 6'5", 250 plus pounds, really physical, good at blocking, and he's a good pass catcher also. So really excited to see how he can be utilized in an offense that again is going to use a lot of tight ends.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. I think us losing Claire and Kazmarek, as you mentioned, Mason Williams, if he is able to, stay healthy, which is the big concern, I think he's going to step into that Will Kazmarek type of role. Great blocker, and that's when it gets interesting with Nate Roberts. A tight end like himself, he could create huge problems over the middle of the field. He's not a bad blocker, but Mason's in there for that role. So I think, like you
Right,
said, a lot
right,
of tight end sets. I think it will be very important for us to have him get off to a good start.
right, absolutely. And I think with him, you're just hoping that he's going to be your jack of all trades tight end, a guy that can um, block, a guy that can catch the football. He doesn't necessarily have to be great at both of those things, but he's more your all-purpose guy as opposed to the two transfers that we brought in. They're going to have more specialized roles.
Yes, I agree with you definitely.
So your number three guy, your third guy on the list.
I don't think many will be surprised on this one right here, but it's Chris Henry Jr. for me. I think he's one of the most exciting young players that we've had at Ohio State at wide receiver. And, that says a lot considering the history of our program. For me, the first thing that really jumps out is the catch radius. We've seen that in the spring game. He's just different physically. You watch the body control, the way he adjusts to the football, the hands, and obviously that's why a lot of people are hyped up about him. The scary part for me and the reason I'm so high on him is because I don't even think he's close to scratching the surface of who he can become. He's still developing.
Absolutely.
And, he averaged over 20 yards a catch as a senior. He played high level high school ball at Mater Dei.
Hmm.
As you could see in the spring game, he was already a threat down the field, 6'5", and he's just not a possession receiver. He can do it all, elite
Hmm.
size, true playmaking ability. And I think he has superstar written all over him.
Chris Henry, a guy that we battled until the very end as Brian Hartline announced his departure. We did lose his modern day teammate, Caden Dixon Wyatt, to the USC Trojans. But I think with Henry, his height at 6'6", he's a 6'6" receiver, and he's that athletic. And obviously, he has NFL blood in him. Rest in peace to his late father, Chris Henry, an Ohio icon, played for the Cincinnati Bengals. But I think with Chris Henry Jr., you see it right off the bat, his connection with not even our starting quarterback, it's our backup quarterback. And he's going up against guys like Devin Sanchez and Jermaine Matthews, two good corners. I can't imagine what he's going to do as he progresses, as he works with Coach Mick, getting his body right to the college football level.
Yeah, I think the sky is the limit for him. Once he gets that college level coaching, especially at Ohio State, as we talked about last week, we develop different in Columbus. And with a guy that, Chris Henry, he's already athletically a freak. I think very good things are on the horizon for him and his development at Ohio State.
Now, my question is, Obviously, you don't have Brian Hartline in the equation anymore. How does that affect Chris Henry now that Cortez hanged him? He's the guy in charge.
Well, a little nervous. We all know that he was committed to Ohio State for a long time. News dropped that Hartline, was going over to South Florida. And then all of a sudden, Chris Henry was taking some time to get it all together. I listened to Hartline's interview, and he said that he told him that's the place you want to be. Like, obviously, we all know there's probably not a better coach in all of football at no matter the level than Brian Hartline at developing
Right.
wide receivers. But, we as people want to beat up on the new hire. We've seen him develop guys at LSU. A lot of the players have praised him already, so they obviously like what he's contributing into this program. So I have no worry about it, about Chris Henry just taking that next step. I think it's kind of just that plug and play. You get that a lot here at Ohio State. And I think that's just, there's levels to building programs to elite levels. And I think you see it at the highest here at Ohio State. So I think he'll be all right.
My third guy, Isaiah West, RB2, a guy that he didn't really see the field a lot last year, but as the season progressed, he started to get some more snaps. Your obvious RB1 is Bo Jackson going into the season. And again, these are two more guys that missed all of spring practice. The injury bug has hit Ohio State, but he's talented, he's big, he's physical, and I think that Coach Laughlin is going to develop him really well.
Yeah, I think he's the perfect 1-2 punch with Bo Jackson. Coming into this year, Isaiah doesn't get the praise that he deserves for how he performed when he came into that Michigan game. He's a powerful runner, man. He's going to pick up those yards. I mean, a lot of the times it looks like there's nothing there, and then boom, he's through the gap and he's picking up more yards that he probably shouldn't have. And that's just the type of player that I feel like surprises everyone once they get the opportunities. And when he started getting those opportunities last year, we've seen what happened. Same with Bo, so these are two hungry guys that I think have a lot to prove this year. And I think we're going to see a fantastic 1-2 punch.
Obviously, last year, we kind of hoped you would have a 1-2 punch with CJ Donaldson and James Peoples. Both those guys are gone now. Now you have two true sophomores in the equation. That's going to be a lot different. There's a lot of youth in that running back room. But again, I'm not really worried about that. I'm actually kind of excited about that.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think Bo's one of the best in the business. I truly do. I think he's one of the best in college football. And I think, honestly, if you had West getting those snaps, I don't think he's as good as Bo. But I mean, I think he would still be looked at as one of the best running backs in college football as well if he had that starting role. So, I mean, you just plug those guys in together. And that's why I was talking about Legend Bay. These are two freshmen we seen last year that came out of nowhere. Like you said, James People and Donaldson were supposed to be the guys that were carrying us, and it just didn't happen that way. So obviously Laughlin's doing a great job at developing these guys, and now you have an absolute athletic freak speed demon coming into that running back room. And I think the sky is the limit. I think that could be a true three-headed monster this year, and you take the pressure off of Julian Sayin with an elite running game. It's good. They're going to be a hard team to beat. People can talk about that schedule all they want, man. But I'll tell you what, if that running game truly opens up and Chris Henry ends up being the guy we think he's going to be, obviously we have Jeremiah Smith still. This offense is going to be scary.
Absolutely. Your fourth guy on your list.
So for me, I'm going to talk about a guy that has been here for quite a while now, but I'm going to go with Brandon Inniss. So a lot of us are putting high hopes. We lost Carnell Tate. We're putting a lot of that on Chris Henry. I think Brandon Inniss is going to step up and be huge in the slot for us this year. This is just a consistent guy. He's had issues in that slot of getting open all the time. But I think he's a good enough route runner, and he's a hell of a captain. And I think this is the year you are going to see Brandon Inniss. Like right now, I don't see anybody even talking about this kid being drafted. I could see him sneaking into the late, day 2 range or early day 3 range. I think he's going to be that type of player. I wouldn't be shocked at all if you're looking at a guy that has 8 to 10 touchdowns and 600 to 700 yards for this offense this year.
Yeah. You'll see an increased role with him. The former 5-star recruit, a guy that he's dealt with some injuries. He dealt with injury right out of the gate in his true freshman season, but still incredibly talented. And like you said, it's the lack of separation that has concerned Ohio State fans. And we know he has the speed. We've seen the good, we've seen the really bad. So for him, I think it's just the consistency and going into his senior season. Again, he's the leader. He was named Iron Buckeye, I believe. So I think with him, you're just hoping to find that consistency.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I just think, we've had such a loaded wide receiver room for so long. I feel like he never really got put in that position to develop into like being that separator that we need. And coming back this year, I think, that's going to be a main focus for them to develop him as a separator coming into the season. And I think he's going to shock a lot of people because he's not that guy right now. People are going to be coming in on with, okay, we have to study Brandon Inniss, but I think when he takes that next step as a route runner, which I expect him to do, I think he's going to be a very good player to have in this offense.
Absolutely. My next guy, this guy, I don't know how much he's going to play in year one, but I'm pretty hopeful, and it's Sincere Johnson out of Glenville, a guy that the Ohio native, somebody that a lot of people have seen or have drawn comparisons to Arvell Reese, again, first round pick for the New York Giants, a guy that really physical, really big at 6'3", a guy that brings all the athleticism that you need to be successful. And I'm really excited to see what he can do in Patricia's defense.
Speaking on Sincere, he was voted Defensive Player of the Year, Cleveland.com. He was a two-time North Lakes District Defensive Player of the Year, 100-plus tackle guy, extremely athletic. So I do think, with the way Patricia, I mean, we see him get the most out of everybody. Like we talked about before, nobody seen Arvell Reese coming the way that he was coming. So I think Matt probably does have a role for him, and he could impact this defense absolutely immediately.
Your final guy, a guy that, again, we're looking to see the improvement. We're looking to see them make an impact. Your final guy that really needs to step up in this season.
I think this is the most obvious answer, and I'm going to just go ahead and talk about it. I think it is Julian Sayin. He has to play better under pressure. And as we talked about Ryan Day, he had said that he wants to get those legs moving, and that's going to be a huge part of probably developing him to get used to that kind of pressure, which I think our schedule this year is going to help us a lot because
Mhm.
obviously we have the toughest schedule in college football. I haven't seen any.
Absolutely, 100%.
And so I think that's going to help him. I mean, we just, outside of that Texas game, I think we won every game by 18 leading up into the Big Ten championship.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we all know Julian Sayin has a nice arm. He's extremely accurate, but I need to definitely see when that pressure's building on him. I need to see him stay in the pocket. If not, if they want to get him out of there, because that's a new structure in this offense, he's a 4.6 5 guy. He can move.
Right, right.
So, I mean, if you're not comfortable in that, he's still a young kid. I mean, he's not huge. So if he can go get outside that pocket and start creating, do that for me at least, so you can
Mhm.
give this offense a different dimension. And like we just talked about Brandon Inniss, if Julian Sayin can start moving out and making plays with his legs, you're going to see a guy like Brandon Inniss continue to stay open. And I think
Yeah,
Julian Sayin, he's an X factor. We need him.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's of ultra importance that, again, you do bring him to his full potential really early on, because as Ryan Day mentioned last year, they weren't going 100%. And it was like, why? We discussed that last episode. And I think whenever you have a schedule like this, no room for error, no breathing room, you have to go 100% from the get go, no matter who the opponent is. It could be Ohio University, Kent State University. You got to go because that next game you can't come out sluggish. So I think for saying it's about using all of his physical tools, all of his potential. Again, he's only about 6'1", but he has the speed to at least roll out, to at least get us a few yards, and again, hopefully he can step up in year two. And I think, you know, it's tough starting in year one, regardless of your skill level, regardless of how many years you've sat. It can be a difficult transition to the next level.
I like we talked about in the last episode, Ryan Day had talked about, he's going to have, we need him to run the ball this year to really open up this offense. And, going back to his offenses, it wasn't that the quarterback couldn't do it. It just seemed like he didn't want them to do it. So I think that's going to be really important. He knows that's the next step for Julian. So I think we'll see that early this year.
Mm-hmm. My final guy, a guy that there were a lot of expectations coming into his true freshman season, which I thought were frankly ridiculous given the position he plays, but it's Devin Sanchez, a guy that I am very high on. And it wasn't, I had no problem with people being high on him last season, but what people need to realize is the quarterback position, in my opinion, is the hardest position in football to adjust to at the next level. I think expecting a true freshman to go out there and play like an All American, that's kind of ridiculous, in my opinion, but I really trust Tim Walton. I like Devin Sanchez's film. He's really physical, a guy that I think could have a really big season heading into his second year. Obviously, he needs to step up this year. You lost Aaron Scott, um, and you lost a couple more guys to the portal. So for him, it's going to be really important that he steps up in year two.
Yeah, I do think he's ready to take that next step, and the expectations that people had on him last year were crazy. But for me, he doesn't play scared, and that's the mentality, you need at Ohio State. So I think this year you're going to see him take that next step. I think he's going to be that number one guy, and I think him and Jermaine will do a very good job, covering the secondary for us.
Thank you guys for listening to the Boomin Buckeyes podcast. Jake Hurricane on for episode 2, your new co-host. I'm Cody Croy. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.